So, hi everyone! Welcome sa ating online class. My name is John Paul Embolitres, but you can call me Sir JP. And I'm here to teach you about accounting. So, our first topic for today is bonds payable. So, what are our objectives for today? Our objectives are to know the recognition of the bonds payable, how we measure the bonds payable, the accounting treatments of bonds payable, and also um, the presentation of the bonds payable in the statement of financial position. Okay, let's start. Issuing the bonds payable is not that easy. Okay, issuing the bonds payable needs some formalities, such as it needs prior approval by the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as the bond certificate must be registered. Okay, and also it needs voting requirements. Okay, ano-ano yung mga voting requirements? Majority of the board of directors must vote. Okay, and 2/3 of the outstanding shareholder must vote. And through that, we can now recognize the bonds payable. Because inauthorized na mag-issue ng bonds payable. So, what is bonds? Bonds is a contract of debt between the issuing entity and the investor, or what we call the creditor. So, it is a contract of debt. So, may tinatawag tayo na bond indenture. So, wait lang. Okay, meron tayong tinatawag na bond indenture. Ano ba yung bond indenture? So, bond indenture or deed of trust is the document which shows in detail the terms of the loan and the rights and duties of the borrower and other parties to the contract. So, it is a kind of contract, and it composed of the characteristic of the bonds, the maturity date and provision for repayment, period of grace allowed to issuing entity, establishment of a sinking fund in the periodic deposit therein, deposit to cover interest payments, provisions affecting mortgage properties such as taxes, insurance coverage, collection of interest or dividends on collaterals, access to corporate books and records of trustee, certification of bonds by trustee, required debt to equity ratio, minimum working capital to be maintained if any. So yun po yung composition ng contract of debt or yung bond indenture. So sa libro ni Valex, binigyan kayo ng iba't ibang types of bonds. Let's start with the due payment or due date of the bonds. There are two types of bonds in terms of due date. Number one is the term bonds, and number two is the serial bonds. What is the term bonds? When we say term bonds, there is only one single date of payment. So, there are single date of maturity. So, let's say, nag-issue tayo ng bonds and nakalagay sa contract na mababayaran mo yung bond after 5 years. So, ang tawag doon is term bonds. There's single date of maturity. Pangalawa naman is yung serial bonds. When we say serial bonds, there are a series of payment. Other term nito is installment. So, other meaning of serial bonds is installment. So, let's say the example of the contract is babayaran mo yung bond yearly. So, in 5 years, babayaran mo yung bond yearly. So, annually mo siya babayaran. Okay? That's what we call the serial bonds. Okay, meron naman tayong bonds in terms of security. So, number one is the mortgage bond. Number two is the collateral trust bonds. And number three is the debenture bonds. What is the mortgage bonds? Are bonds secured by a mortgage on real properties? Ito naman yung mga bonds na in-issue natin tapos meron tayong security na provide, which is our real properties. Okay? Number two is collateral trust bonds. Are bonds secured by shares and bonds of other corporations? So, it is secured by our share on the part of the issuing entity and other bonds of other corporation. Number three is debenture bonds. Pag debenture bonds naman, ito yung mga unsecured bonds or without collateral. Okay? So, Pangatlo naman, registered and bearer bonds. So, when we say registered bonds, it required the registration of the name of the bondholder on the books of the corporation. So, yung bondholder or the investor, meron siyang registration ng kanyang pangalan doon sa corporation. Okay? Pangalawa naman is coupon or bearer bonds. Yung difference nila, ito naman, unregistered bond naman to. So, yung bondholder, hindi siya recorded doon sa book ng issuing entity or ng issuing corporation. So, sino yung mabibigyan, sino yung makaka-receive ng interest? Of course, the bondholder na may hawak ng coupon, okay? Or detachable interest coupon. Okay? Other types of bonds. Meron tayong tinatawag na convertible bonds which can be exchanged by the shares of the issuing entity. Okay? Callable bonds which may be called in for redemption prior to maturity date. So pag sinabing callable bond, pwede siyang mabayaran prior to the maturity date. Guaranteed bonds are bonds issued whereby another party promised to make payment if the borrower fails to do so. So guaranteed bonds, merong other party na ginaranti yung utang. Okay? Panghuli is junk bonds. These bonds are high-risk, high-yield bonds issued by entities that are heavily indebted or otherwise in weak financial condition. Ito naman yung mga bond na ini-issue ng issuing entity na high-risk. Sabihin na natin na yung nag-i-issue ng bonds, need na talaga yung pera. So, pero wala masyadong security. So, junk bonds ang tawag po doon. Okay? So, ayun. Tapos na po tayo on recognizing the bonds payable. Nalaman na natin yung formalities of bonds payable, yung voting power, ano pa ba? Yung types of bonds payable, bond indenture, nasabi na rin natin. So, magtungo naman tayo sa initial measurement of bonds payable. When we say initial measurement, kapag nag-issue tayo ng bonds, paano ba natin siya mini-measure? So, meron tayong dalawa na binigay noong ng standard PFRS 9, paragraph 5, FB minus TC, ibig sabihin, fair value minus transaction cost. Number 2 is FVPL or fair value through profit or loss. So, ano tong fair value? Yung fair value po, sabi sa libro ni Valix, it is the present value of all cash payments for the bonds. So, lahat ng mga babayaran mo about sa bonds, yun yung fair value. And also, ito yung gusto kong tandaan nyo, it is the net proceeds received by the issuing entity by issuing the bonds to the investor, excluding the interest. Okay po? So, fair value is the net proceeds excluding the interest. So, yan yung fair value. Okay po? So, minus, always remember this, the minus transaction cost. Minus transaction cost. Ano yung transaction cost? Yung transaction cost po, these are the expenses that are directly attributable to the issuing of the bonds. So, these are bond issue costs. Okay? So, yun po So, kapag nag-issue po ang corporation ng bonds, of course, to get the initial measurement of the bonds, kailangan niya makuha yung fair value or the net proceeds excluding the interest. Kung merong bond issue cost or transaction cost, kailangan po yung LS, and yung makukompute natin, yun na po yung fair value less transaction cost. Okay po? Pangalawa naman is yung fair value through profit or loss. Kapag yung issuing entity, ang ginamit niya na standard of initial measuring the bonds payable is FBPL, ano na to? Irrevocably elected or irrevocably designated ng issuing entity na i-record yung bonds as FBPL. So, irrevocably designated. So, lagi niyo po tatandaan, kapag may na-encounter po kayo na problem, na kapag may nakalagay na doon na irrevocably designated by the issuing entity, yung initial measurement niya sa bonds, FBPL po iyon. Okay? So, pag FBPL, of course, yung fair value ng bonds. Anong treatment natin dun sa transaction cost? Ang treatment natin sa transaction cost, kapag ito po yung ginamit nating initial measurement, is transaction cost, transaction cost is expense outright. Expense outright. So, i-record mo na siya agad as expense. Hindi siya valuation account ng bonds, okay? Kasi 'di ba dito sa number 1, valuation account siya. Nilalas mo siya dun sa fair value to get the value or the initial carrying amount of the bonds. While this number 2 sa FBPL, yung fair value lang. Ito, disregard mo siya sa recognition, ay sa measurement ng bonds. Ano lang siya? Expense outright. So, common entry, transaction cost or bond issue cost, debit, tapos credit tayo ng cash. Okay? Ayan po. So, let's proceed to the subsequent measurement. When we say subsequent, ito yung measurement natin at the end of the period. Let's say calendar period, it ends December 31, or fiscal period, it ends in any month. But of course, dapat 12-month period. So, ganun po. So, ayon sa standard, there are two subsequent measurement. Okay? Number 1 is the amortized cost using the effective interest method. So, effective interest method po ang gagamitin natin in amortizing the premium or the discount. Okay? Secondly is the fair value through profit or loss. So, kapag ang ginamit nating initial measurement is FBPL, of course, subsequently, FBPL din yung subsequent measurement natin. So, ayun lamang po. Maraming salamat. So, let's proceed to accounting treatment. Okay? Doon magtungo na tayo sa pag-issue naman ng bonds payable. Okay? Ng pag-issue ng bonds. Okay? Issuing of bonds. Number 1, at face amount. Number 2, at a discount. Number 3, at a premium. Okay. So, the issuing entity can issue the bond to the investor at face amount, at a discount, or at a premium. So, let's start with the face amount. When we say face amount, di ba, meron tayong bond certificate. So, bawat isang bond certificate, meron siyang equivalent denomination. So, let's say, inauthorize tayo, we are authorized to issue the bond certificate. Ang value ng bonds ay halaga 1,000. So, kapag nag-issue ka ng 5,000 bond certificate, so 5,000 multiplied by 1,000 kasi yun yung value ng isang certificate. So, 5 million. So, ganun. So, when we issue the bonds at face amount, in-issue natin siya at face amount. So, 5 million. 5 million din yung na-receive natin. So, yung net proceeds natin is also 5 million. Okay po? So, ganun siya pag issue at face amount. So, eto, madali lang kapag at face amount. So, number 2, at a discount. So, yung issuing entity, pwede siyang mag-issue at a discount. Ano po ibig sabihin ng discount? From the word discount, less. Mas bababa yung natanggap mo. So, let's say, example natin, 5 million yung 5 million yung halaga ng in-issue ng issuing entity. Ang na-receive lang ng corporation or ng issuing entity ay 4,900. Ano yung magiging entry natin dito? So, debit tayo ng cash for 4,900. Debit tayo ng discount for 100,000. And credit tayo ng, ano pa? Credit tayo ng bonds payable 5 million. Okay? Ayan po siya. So, kapag at a discount, yung net proceeds natin ay mas mababa. Net proceeds is lower than the face amount. Okay? Face amount of bonds. So, ganun po. So, ano yung initial measure na magkano yung initial measurement natin sa bonds payable? Of course, 4,900. Yun yung net proceeds natin. Kasi yun yung magiging fair value niya. So, bonds payable as 5 million less discount 100,000. So, initial measurement natin is 4,900. Okay? So, yun po yun. Paano naman kapag nag-issue tayo at a premium? When we say premium, of course, may nadagdag. Okay? So, yung issuing entity, nag-issue lang siya ng 5 million, nakatanggap siya ng 5,100. So, that's what we call a premium. So, ang entry natin, kapag ang premium ang ginamit natin, kapag premium ang naging result ng issuing, ng pag-i-issue ng bonds, 5,100,000, debit tayo ay debit ng cash 5,100,000, credit tayo ng bonds payable for 5 million, credit tayo ng premium on bonds payable. How much? 100,000. Okay? So, at initial measurement, magkano yung value ng bonds? Of course, fair value or the net proceeds. So, bonds payable na 5 million, tapos premium na 100,000. So, the total initial carrying amount of the bonds is 5,100,000. So, ganun lang po kasimple yung accounting treatment natin sa issuing of the bonds. So, paano siya nagkakaroon ng medyo hard na, medyo mas malalim na treatment kapag meron tayong bond issue costs or nag-issue tayo between interest dates. So, pag-uusapan po natin yan, okay? So, ayan po. Buburahin ko lang po muna. Since maliit lang ang ating blackboard. So, nag-issue tayo with bond issue cost and between interest date. Okay? Diyan nagkakaroon ng medyo challenging. Kasi ito kanina yung mga example ko, madali lang. Okay? Mas malalo nating mag-gets. Madali nating na-gets. Pero kapag, how about nagkaroon na siya ng bond issue cost and in-issue siya between interest date. So, magtungo tayo dito sa face amount. So, actually, kapag nagkaroon siya ng bond issue cost, hindi na siya dito sa face amount. Dito na siya papasok sa discount. Why? Because ang treatment natin sa bond issue cost is discount. Okay? So, paano kung ganito ang example natin. Nag-issue tayo ng bonds payable, nag-issue tayo ng bonds sa investor, okay? Ang net proceeds natin is 5 million. Ang face amount ng bonds is 5 million. Let's say, Ayan. No, wait lang. Ang net proceeds natin of issuing of the bonds is 5 million. However, meron tayong bond issue cost. Meron tayong expenses that are directly attributable to the issuing of the bonds na 200,000. So, bond issue cost na 200,000. Okay? Ganun po. So, paano yan? Paano yung magiging measurement natin dyan? Diba, sinabi ko kanina na ang measurement natin na binigay ng PFRS 9, number 1 is FB minus TC. So, yung fair value na net proceeds less transaction cost na bond issue cost. So, ano yung magiging entry natin dyan? Of course, kunin na natin yung difference nito. I-compound entry na natin sila. So, yung pinaka-net proceeds natin, net amount na na-receive natin is ayan talaga, yung pinaka na-receive natin. Hindi itong 5 million, kundi 4,800,000. So, ang entry natin dito is cash, 4,800,000. Okay? Debit tayo ng discount on bonds payable na 200,000. And credit tayo ng bonds payable 5 million. So, how much is our initial measurement? Of course, 4,800,000. Yung total net amount na na-receive natin or yung net proceeds na na-receive natin. Ayos po ba yun? Okay. Paano naman, at i-discount tayo, paano naman kung may between interest date? So, when we say between interest date, example nito, in-issue mo yung bonds, tapos yung payment ng interest is semi-annually. So, let's say, January 1 and July 1. Okay? January 1 and July 1. Normally, nag-i-issue ang bonds, tinatapat siya sa interest date. Normally, January 1 or July 1. However, kapag merong between interest date, in-issue siya between this date. Between that date or between this date. Okay po ba? Kapag in-issue siya between this date, let's say, in-issue mo siya ng May, ang bilang natin dyan is from January to May. Okay po? From January to May. So, let's say, in-issue siya ng May 1. Ang bilang natin dyan is from January to May. Hindi pwede ang bilang natin dyan, July, tapos May, diba? Parang lagpas na ng 12 month yun. Ay, lagpas na ba? July. Hindi pa pala. Pero, sobrang haba, diba? So, January to May lang. So, ito yung between interest date. So, let's say, in-issue naman siya ng August. Yung bilang mo, hindi from January, of course, yung bilang mo from July to August. Okay? Pag between interest date, yung interest na dapat ibabayad natin, marireceive muna ng issuing entity. Marireceive muna ng issuing entity. Okay? So, let's say, January to May, ang interest na computation natin doon is, let's say, 50,000. Okay? 50,000 sabihin na natin. So, ito pa rin yung example natin, yung 5 million. So, paano yung magiging entry natin dyan? So, yung magiging entry natin dyan is, ito, ibahin ko lang. Burahin ko lang. Ang magiging entry natin dyan is, debit tayo ng cash. Itong 4,800, pa-plus natin to ng 50,000. Okay? 4,800 plus 50,000, of course, 4,850. Okay? Discount on bonds payable, debit, how much? 200,000. Bonds payable, 5 million. And interest expense, 50,000. So, ganyan. Yung initial measurement pa rin natin, of course, 4,800,000. Kasi nga, di ba, sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, sorry, fair value less transaction cost, wherein the fair value is the total net proceeds received by the issuing entity excluding the interest. Okay? So, yung January to May, i-claim mo muna siya as proceeds. Ganun po yun. No? I-claim mo muna siya as proceeds ng issuing entity. Kaya nadagdagan. Okay? Kapag magbabayad na tayo ng interest on July 1, ano yung magiging entry natin dyan? Let's say, ang pinaka-total na interest from January to July is 100,000. Ang magiging entry natin dyan is debit tayo ng interest expense, credit tayo ng cash, 100,000. Okay? So, 100,000 pa rin. So, kapag magre-record tayo ng interest expense, from January to July pa rin yung computation. Okay? Kasi, kung i-ledger natin siya, kung i-TT account natin siya, tama pa din naman yung interest expense natin. Why? Kasi, di ba, may credit tayo ng interest expense dito na 50,000, may debit tayo ngayon dito na 100,000, 50,000 pa rin yung debit balance natin. Okay? So, may 50,000 pa rin tayo, which is from May to July. Okay? Yun talaga yung talagang naging interest expense natin, which is napakita po dito sa T-account. So, okay na po tayo sa between interest date. So, let's proceed to premium. Burahin ko lang po ito Yan, picture niyo muna. Okay. So, let's proceed to premium. Sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, premium kapag yung na-receive mo or yung net proceeds mo is mas mataas dun sa face amount. Okay? So, premium, may bond issue cost, and between interest date. Pagsamahin natin tatlo. So, let's say 5 million pa din. Net proceeds natin, sabihin natin is 5,200. Okay? Yung face value or face amount ng bonds, 5 million. Natanggap natin, yung issue natin is 5,200,000. Meron tayong nagastos na bond issue cost na 100,000. Okay? Meron tayong between interest date. Na-explain ko naman sa inyo kanina yung between interest date. Hindi na ako magbibigay ng example. So, meron tayong between interest date na 50,000. So, ayan yung nangyaring transaction. Okay, yun yung nangyaring transaction. Yun yung binigay na sa problem. Okay? So, paano natin siya i-record? So, let's record this one. So, net proceeds natin, of course, computin natin to, 5,200,000 minus 100 plus 50 minus 2, ito plus. So, 5,1 plus 50, of course, 5,150,000. Understand? So, i-record na natin siya. Debit tayo ng cash, 5,150,000. Of course, debit tayo ng discount. Ito. Wait. Hindi na. Naano kayo doon naguluhan kayo doon Okay? Hindi na natin to i-discount. Why? Ganito, tandaan nyo po ito. Wait lang, naturo ko ba sa inyo yun? Nalamp ba natin yung kanina? Ay, hindi. Body show cost lang yun. Walang discount. 5 million din. Okay. Dito naman kasi ngayon, 5,200,000 yung na-receive natin. So, meron tayong 200,000 na premium. Okay? 200,000. Then, meron tayong bond issue cost na 100,000. And we all know, itong bond issue cost na to ay i-recognize natin as a discount. So, discount natin is 100,000. So, the difference between the two is 100,000. So, pag ganyan, pag meron siyang premium and discount, kukunin mo na lang yung difference at kung ano yung pinakamalaki, yun yung magiging valuation account niya. So, ano yung pinakamalaki? Of course, the premium. So, ang i-record natin premium is 100,000. So, ang magiging entry po natin, debit tayo ng cash for 5,150,000. Credit na po. Credit tayo ng bonds payable na 5 million. Okay? Then, credit tayo ng premium on bonds payable na 100,000. Okay? Then, credit tayo ng interest expense amounted to 50,000. So, ganun po. Ganun po kapag premium, then may bond issue cost and between interest date. So, tapos na po tayo about sa issuing of bonds. Magtungo naman po tayo sa pangalawa, which is the subsequent measurement. Okay? Let's proceed to subsequent measurement. Okay. Number one is amortize cost using the effective interest method. So, dito po muna tayo. Okay? Sabi ko nga po kanina, after initial measurement, meron tayong subsequent measurement, which is binigay ng standard. Okay, dalawa, which is the amortized cost using the effective interest method. And pangalawa is yung fair value through profit or loss. Okay po? So, kapag amortized cost, effective interest method, yun po yung nire-require ng standard. So, paano ba yung magiging example natin dito? Let's say, nag-issue po tayo ng bonds at a discount. Nag-issue tayo ng bond at a discount. Example, face amount natin is 5 million. Fair value less transaction cost natin is 4,900,000. Of course, discount is 100,000. Okay po. The stated rate is 10%. Sa tingin nyo, magkano yung effective rate? Always remember na kapag discount ang initial measurement natin, okay? Kapag discount ang initial measurement natin, stated rate is lower. Okay? Stated rate is lower than the effective rate. So, assuming ang magiging effective rate natin is 12%. So, sa pag-compute ng interest expense, nababayaran natin interest expense, gagamitin natin yung stated rate. Okay? Paano yon? So, face amount multiplied by stated rate. So, ito yung payment natin for interest expense. Pag amortization naman po, ang basis natin, of course, is yung present value or yung fair value less transaction cost. Ito yung basis natin. I-multiply natin dito sa effective rate. So, ano yung magiging entry po natin dyan? Ang magiging entry natin dyan is interest expense, debit, and credit to discount on bonds payable. So, ganyan po yung magiging entry natin. So, dito, ang magiging entry natin dito, interest expense, then cash. Okay? debit interest expense, credit cash. So, ganyan po yung magiging entry natin. Let's say, na-forgot natin mag-amortize. Okay, na-forgot natin mag-amortize. Ano yung magiging effect of neglecting the amortization of the discount? Ang magiging effect po niyan is interest expense will be understated. The effect would be the net income would be overstated. Do you agree? Of course. Kasi kapag mas mababa yung na-record mo na interest expense, mas malaki yung magiging net income natin. Yung income statement natin, hindi reliable. Of course, hindi faithfully represented. Why? Because net income is bloated or overstated. Ganun po yun. So, lagi po natin tatandaan kapag nag-issue po tayo ng discount and pag in-amortize po natin yun, laging may debit interest expense and credit discount on bonds payable. Ganun po siya. Okay, tapos na po tayo sa discount. Magtugon naman po tayo sa premium. Premium. Okay. Face amount, same, 5 million. However, fair value less transaction cost is 5,200,000. Premium is 200,000. Stated rate, let's say 10%. How much? What would be our effective rate? Ano yung magiging assumption natin sa effective rate? Always remember, kapag at a premium, stated rate must be higher than the effective rate. So, let's say, ang effective rate natin dito is 8%. Yun po. So, ano po pala yung idea kanina? Doon muna tayo sa discount. Ano yung idea? Bakit? Bakit sa discount, stated rate is lower than the effective rate? Ano yung idea niyan? Pag discount kasi, di ba, on the part of the issuing entity, lost mo yon. Okay? However, this is not recorded to the net income. Okay? Lost mo siya the part of on your part because ikaw nag-issue ka ng 5 million, babayaran mo at the end of the day 5 million. However, natanggap mo lang is 4.9. So, ang idea nun, the investor is not willing to accept the bond na may mababang interest. So, gusto niya mas mataas yung interest. So, effective rate, ang talagang effective rate niya is mas mataas sa stated rate. That's why ganyan yung idea niya. So, sa premium naman, ang idea naman dyan is gain on the part of the issuing entity because nag-issue ka ng bonds, at the end of the day, babayaran mo 5 million, natanggap mo is 5,200,000. Of course, gain on your part yon. Tama po ba? So, ang idea naman po nito, willing ang investor natin or yung creditor natin na magpautang sa atin at a lower rate. That's why 8% ang ating effective rate. Yun po yung idea nun. So, ayun po. Paano po pag magbabayad po tayo ng interest? Of course, face amount multiplied by stated rate. Ayan po yun, face amount multiplied by stated rate. In this case, 5 million multiplied by 10%, of course. Interest expense, 500,000, cash, 500,000. Okay. How about the amortization? Yung magiging amortization po natin, of course, ito, multiply natin sa 8%. 5.2 times 0.08%, 416. Less po natin dito sa 500,000. So, So, 84,000. Ang magiging entry po natin dyan, debit tayo ng premium on bonds payable, credit tayo ng interest expense. So, 84,000. Okay. Question. What would be the effect if the issuing entity, the accountant, neglects to record the amortization of the premium on bonds payable? So, the effect would be the interest expense is overstated. Do you agree? Yes. Kasi nga na-neglect mo eh. Tama ba? Na-neglect mo to eh. Na-neglect mo. Ano mangyayari? Mas mataas yung interest expense mo. So, overstated. Net income is understated. Why? Kapag overstated yung expense, of course, net income would be understated. So, yan po yung magiging effect kapag na-neglect po natin. Okay? So, okay na po tayo dito sa amortized cost. Don't worry. Meron naman po tayong review problems later. Mas mauunawaan nyo po yan. Okay? So, magtungo naman po tayo dun sa pangalawang subsequent measurement, which is the fair value through profit or loss. Okay. Second one is the fair value through profit or loss. Okay. Let's start with the initial measurement pala muna. So, initial measurement, ito din. Initial measurement, yan din yung gagamitin natin. So, sabi nga natin, fair value is the net proceeds less, excluding the interest. So, kung ang issuing entity ay nag-issue ng bonds payable to the investors and they issue it, they account, yung accounting treatment ng issuing entity is, what do you call that, irrevocably designated as fair value through profit or loss. So, ito po yung gagamitin natin. Okay po? So, let's say, nag-issue po tayo ng bonds and yun po yung ginamit natin, fair value through profit or loss. Ang face amount ng bonds natin is 5 million pero in-issue mo siya ng 5,200,000. Ano po yung magiging entry natin dito? So, cash natin is 5,200,000 and bonds payable natin is 5,200,000. So, wala na siyang valuation account. Wala na siyang premium account. Okay? So, always remember, kapag irrevocably designated as fair value to profit or loss, there are no discount or premium. Okay? How about the transaction cost? Transaction cost is expense outright. Let's say, meron tayong transaction cost na 50,000. So, 50K. Debit 50K. Credit tayo ng cash for 50K. Okay? Do you understand? Ganun lang po siya. So, subsequently, or let's say calendar period, fair value through profit or loss natin siya nire-recognize. Of course, doon natin siya nire-recognize. So, December, nag-increase yung fair value. What would be the effect if nag-increase? Sige nga. Okay, tama ka po doon. Ang magiging effect nun is actually loss, right? Because on the part of the issuing entity, on our part, let's say we are the issuing entity, bonds payable is our responsibility, our debt, utang po natin yon. So kapag tumas yung fair value nun, of course, loss in our part yon. So debit tayo ng loss on the change in the fair value. Let's say, di ba 5.2 yung record natin, naging 5.3. So 100,000. Then, bonds payable, 100,000. Ito, nire-recognize natin ito sa net income. So, sa net income natin ito, pinapercent yung loss. Okay? How about next year? Let's say ito, 2019 to. naging 5,300,000. So, ito yung magiging entry. How about next year, 2020 December, naging 5,100,000 na lang. From 5,300,000 noong December 2019, naging 5,100,000 na lang noong 2020. So, ano yung magiging entry natin dyan? Of course, on our part, it is a gain. Why? Because bumaba yung value ng utang natin. So, entry natin dyan is bonds payable, 200,000. And credit tayo ng gain on the change on the fair value of the bonds payable, 200,000. Ganun lang po kasimple. Okay, how about the interest? Kapag fair value through profit or loss po, yung ginagamit natin accounting method, ang magiging entry po natin for interest, let's say 5 million, 5 million yung face amount, diba? So, let's say may 10% tayong stated rate. So, always disregard, ito, stated rate, always disregard the effective rate. Let's say may effective rate tayo dito na 8%. Okay, kasi premium eh. I mean, kasi mas mataas yung natanggap natin sa mas mababa. May binigay na effective. Panggulo lang po yan. Okay, yung effective rate. Panggulo lang po yan. Disregard. Pansinin lang po natin yung stated rate. So, 5 million times 10%. Ang magiging entry po natin yan. Interest expense. 500,000 cash. 500,000. Ganun lang po siya kasimple. So, that's it. Ayan na po yung lecture natin for bonds payable. Other topic na bonds payable, it's your responsibility to know that. Meron po akong inihanda ng mga review questions and theories. So, yun, aaralin po natin. Okay? Ayan. So guys, let's start with the theoretical part. Okay? Number 1, bonds payable not designated at fair value through profit or loss shall be measured initially at letter A, fair value, letter B, fair value plus bond issuance cost, letter C, fair value less issuance cost, or letter D, face amount. Ano po yung sagot niya? Is it letter A? Is it letter B? Is it letter C? Or is it letter D? So, the answer is letter C. Fair value less issuance cost or bond issue cost. Of course, binigay po yan ng standard, which is PFRS 9 paragraph 5. Okay? Number 2, after initial recognition, bonds payable shall be measured at, so ang tinatanong po dito ay subsequent measurement. Letter A, amortized cost using the effective interest method. Letter B, fair value through profit or loss. Letter C, amortized cost using the effective interest method and fair value through other comprehensive income. And letter D, amortized cost using the effective interest method and fair value through profit or loss. So, the answer is letter D. Binigay din po ito ng standard. Okay, the answer is amortized cost using the effective interest method and the fair value through profit or loss. So, let's proceed to number 3. So, number 3, question, the amortized cost of bonds payable means letter A, face amount plus premium on bonds payable. Number 2, face amount minus discount on bonds payable. Number 3, face amount minus bond issue cost. Number 3. Letter A. Letter A, letter B, letter C po yun. Letter D, face amount plus premium on bonds payable minus discount on bonds payable and minus bond issue cost. So, the answer is letter D. Face amount plus premium on bonds payable minus discount on bonds payable and minus bond issue cost. So, number 4. Which is a true statement for electing the fair value option for measuring bonds payable. So, ang hinahanap po dito is true statement. Okay? So, letter A, the effective interest method of amortization must be used to calculate the interest expense. Letter B, discount or premium is deducted. Hmm, discount or premium is no, not deducted. Disclosed in the notes to the financial statement. Letter C, the fair value of the bond and the principal obligation must be disclosed. Or letter D, if the fair value option is elected, it must be applied to all the bonds. What is your answer? So the answer is letter C. The fair value of the bond and the principal obligation must be disclosed. So yun po yung tamang sagot. Number 5, how would the amortization of premium on bonds payable affect the carrying amount of bond and the net income respectively? So yung tinatanong po dito, ano daw po yung magiging effect ng amortization ng premium on bonds doon sa sa carrying amount of the bond and dun sa net income. So the answer is letter D. Okay, letter D. Why letter D? So we all know that the premium on bonds payable is valuation accounts or added siya dun sa bonds payable. So kapag in-amortize natin siya, 'di ba? Ang magiging entry natin is debit tayo ng premium on bonds payable and credit tayo ng interest expense. So sa bonds payable, so ina-add yung premium doon sa bonds payable. So since nabawasan yung premium kasi ang normal entry niya is credit, 'di ba? Since nabawasan siya, dinebit kasi siya. So nabawasan yung ipa-plus doon sa bonds payable. So, ang effect niyan is decrease on the bonds payable. Sa net income naman, increase. Why? Because yung nag-compute tayo ng interest payment natin, okay, nag-compute tayo ng interest expense ng interest payment natin, nag-debit tayo ng interest expense and nag-credit tayo ng cash. Diba? Kapag nag-amortize tayo, credit natin yung interest expense, tapos dinidebit natin yung premium on bonds payable. So, ang effect nun, nabawasan yung interest expense natin. So, magiging pinaka-effect nun sa net income natin is increase. So, the answer is letter D, decrease and increase. So, number 6, how would the amortization of discount on bonds payable affect the carrying amount of bond and the net income respectively? So, the answer is letter A, increase and decrease. So, reverse lang ng explanation ko kanina. So, kapag discount on bonds payable, di ba magiging entry natin doon is debit tayo ng interest expense and credit tayo ng discount on bonds payable. And we all know that discount on bonds payable is valuation account. However, it is deducted to the bonds payable. So, kapag nabawasan yung i-deduct mo doon, di ba, it is deducted to bonds payable. So, nabawasan yung discount. So, mas mababa yung ipande-deduct mo. So, mas mataas yung bonds payable. So, nag-i-increase yung amount ng bonds payable kapag amortization. Okay? Kapag in-amortize yung discount. So, sa ano naman, sa income statement naman, bakit decrease? Why? Di ba pag nag-amortize tayo with debit interest expense, yung credit discount, so, nadagdagan yung nirecord mo na interest expense sa una na payment. Okay? That's why the answer is letter A, increase and decrease. Number 7, an amortized debt discount should be reported as, what is your answer? Letter A, direct deduction from the face amount of the debt. Letter B, direct deduction from the present value of the debt. Letter C, deferred charge. Letter D, part of the bond issue costs. So the unamortized debt discount should be reported as, the answer is letter B, direct deduction from the present value. I know. Present value of the debt. Wait a minute. Present value or face amount. An amortized debt discount should be reported as letter A, direct deduction from the face amount of the debt. Letter B, direct deduction from the... Oh, no. The answer is letter A. Kasi nga, di ba, valuation account din tong debt discount. Yung unamortized debt discount. So, that's why it is it is letter A. So, direct deduction from the face amount of the debt. Kasi di ba kapag ginagamit natin yung fair value less transaction cost, yung pag nagre-record tayo initially, di ba, pag kinikredit natin yung bonds payable, naka-face amount pa rin naman yun. However, may valuation account tayo para ma-present pa rin natin siya at fair value less transaction cost. So, yung unamortized, ano siya, valuation account siya. That's why letter A ang sagot. So, number 8, an entity neglected to amortize the premium on outstanding bond payable. What is the effect of failure to record premium amortization on interest expense and bond carrying amount respectively? So, ito yung in-explain ko kanina. Yung kanina doon tayo sa amortized cost. Kapag na-neglect daw yung amortized ng premium, what would be the effect doon sa amortization ng interest expense and bond carrying amount? So, the answer is letter C. Tama ba? I know, wait. What would be the effect of failure to record premium? Dun sa interest expense, what is the effect of the failure to record premium amortization on interest expense pala and carrying amount? So, interest expense, of course, overstated. Tama po ba? Kasi kinulangan tayo ng entry ng debit premium, credit, interest expense. So, overstated. How about the bond carrying amount? Overstated din. Right? Kasi hindi nabawasan yung i-add mo dun sa sa bonds payable So, overstated pa rin. So, the answer is letter D, overstated and overstated. Number 9, what is the interest rate written on the face amount of the bonds? So, meron tayong bond certificate, di ba? Sa bond certificate, nakalagay doon kung magkano yung denomination. Of course, this stated rate, the coupon rate, or the nominal rate. Isang tawag lang po yan. So, the answer is letter D. Okay? What is the rate of interest actually incurred? Kung magkano daw talaga yung actually incurred or kung magkano talaga yung total interest expense. Okay? So, the answer is letter D. Iisang tawag lang po yan. Market rate, yield rate, or effective rate. Iisang tawag lang po yan. So, kanina yung example ko, effective rate. So, may mga problem na sasabihin yield rate o kaya market rate. Kaya dapat kabisado niyo po yun. So, okay. Tapos na tayo sa theoretical part. Magtungo naman po tayo sa problem part. Okay po. Okay, dito naman po tayo sa computation part. Okay, number 1, on March 1, 2018, an entity issued 5,000 of 1,000 peso face value bonds at 110 plus accrued interest. The entity paid bond issue cost of 400,000. The bonds were dated November 1, 2017, mature on November 1, 2027, and bear interest at 12%. Payable semi-annually on May 1 and November 1. What net amount was received from the issuance of the bonds? Okay? So, the question is yung net amount. Kung magkano yung net amount na natanggap. So, the entity issued 5,000 certificates of 1,000 denomination bonds. So, 5,000 multiplied by 1,000 peso multiplied by 110. So, equivalent to 110% po yun. So, the answer is 5,500,000, right? Plus accrued interest. Kasama din po ito sa matatanggap niya. Sabi ko kanina, di ba, between interest date, May 1, dito na lang, May 1 to November 1. Of course, hanggang May dito, April 30. So, saan siya mas malapit? Of course, dito sa November. So, nag-issue siya ng March March tayo bibilang. Okay, hindi pwede ng May kasi sobrang layo na yan eh. Sa likod niya na yan. So, November to March tayo. So, November to March, how much? Ilang months? November, December, January, February. February lang ha, kasi March 1 yon. So, 4 months. Okay? So, sa 4 months, may net proceeds pa tayong matatanggap dyan. So, magkano po yun? 5,000 times 1,000 pesos multiplied by, magkano yung interest? 12%. Okay? Annually yan. So, 12% multiplied by 4 divided by 12 is equal to 200,000. Okay? Ano pa? Bond issue cost. Magkano yung bond issue cost? Ililis natin yan. Which is the 400,000. So, the net amount received from the bond issuance is, letter C, 5,300,000. Okay? Ano po yung magiging entry natin dyan? Let's say, ang ginamit natin na initial measurement is fair value less transaction cost. So, fair value less transaction cost. Ang magiging entry natin dyan is debit tayo ng cash. Of course, the total received na 5,300,000. Debit tayo ng bonds, credit. Credit tayo ng bonds payable. How much? 5 million. Credit tayo ng premium on bonds payable na 100,000. And ano pa? Credit tayo ng interest expense. How much? 200,000. So, ganyan po siya. Ganyan. Okay po? How about fair value through profit or loss? Sabihin natin yung initial measurement, irrevocably designated siya fair value through profit or loss. Ano yung magiging entry natin? So, debit tayo ng cash for 5,300,000. Okay? Debit tayo ng expense. Ano yan? Transaction cost yan, tama? So, 400,000. Debit tayo ng bonds payable. Magkano? Of course, ito. 5,500,000. And credit tayo ng interest expense for 200,000. So, ganun lang po siya kasimple kapag fair value through profit or loss. So, dapat alam nyo po yung difference ng fair value fair value less transaction cost and fair value through profit or loss. So, okay na po tayo sa number 1. Let's proceed to number 2 problem. So, for number 2 problem, during the current year, an entity issued 5 million, 9% face value bonds at 110 at interest rate. In connection with the issue of the bonds, the entity paid the following costs. So, promotion cost, 100,000, engraving and printing cost, 200,000, underwriter commission, 400,000, legal fees, 350,000, fees paid to accountants for registration, 50,000. What amount should be recorded initially as discount or premium on bonds payable? So, kunin po muna natin yung kung magkano yung issuance natin. So, 5 million multiplied by 110%. So, magkano po yun? Of course, 5,500,000. So, i-difference na natin siya sa face amount. So, may premium po tayo na 500,000. However, meron po ditong bond issue cost. Remember, sabi ko po kanina, kapag bond issue cost, discount na rin yung treatment natin doon. So, may discount tayo na, magkano po? 200 plus 400, so 600, plus 350, so 9, magkano ba? 200 plus 400, 200 plus 400, 400 plus 350 plus 50, okay, 1 million plus 100,000. So, the answer Ay, wag muna tayo sa the answer. Yung nasa baba po, yun po lahat yung bond issue cost. Yung promotion cost, engraving, underwriter, legal fees paid. So, lahat yan, bond issue cost. So, recognize natin siya as discount. So, 1,100,000. So, the answer is letter D. Diba? The answer B. Okay? So, 600,000 discount. Okay? So, ano po yung magiging entry natin dito? So, debit tayo ng cash, of course. Magkano yun? So, 5 million. Magkano ba na-receive natin? 5,500,000. Less natin yan. Magkano? 4,400,000. So, 4,400,000. Okay, debit tayo ng cash, 4,400,000. Ano? Discount, of course. Debit tayo ng discount. Discount on bonds payable. Magkano? Magkano ba yung sagot natin kanina? 600,000. Right? And then, credit tayo ng bonds payable na 5 million. Ganyan po yung magiging entry natin. Under fair value less transaction cost. How about fair value through profit or loss? Magkano? Of course, debit tayo ng cash. How much? 5,500,000. Right? Credit tayo ng bonds payable. 5,500,000. Then, transaction cost recognizes expense outright na 1,100,000. Then cash 1,100,000. So that's it for number 2. The answer is letter D. Okay? Burahin na po natin. So number 3, on January 1, 2018, an entity issued 9% bonds in the face amount of 5 million, which mature on January 1, 2028. The bonds were issued for 4,695,000 to yield 10% interest. Interest is payable annually on December 31. The entity used the interest method of amortizing bond discount. Number 1 question, what is the interest expense for 2018? Ang payo ko po sa inyo kapag may mga ganito na po kayong problem na na-encounter, tinatanong yung interest expense, tinatanong yung carrying amount, gumawa na po kayo ng amortization table. So, ano po ba yung tsura ng magiging amortization table natin? So, amortization table. Helpful po to, of course, kapag yung mga tinatanong is malalayo ng year, di ba? So, of course, the date. Okay? The interest expense using the stated rate, the interest expense using the effective rate, then the present value of the bonds. Okay? What is the date? Okay, nung issuance ng 2018, ang present value natin is 4,695,000. Okay? Stated rate natin is 9%. Kapag yung face amount natin, di ba, is 5 million. Always remember, at the discount, stated rate must be lower than the effective rate. Kaya ang effective rate natin dito is 10%. Okay. So, ang tinatanong is interest expense nung December 31, 2018. So, no 2018, how much daw? So, 5 million multiplied by 9%, magkano? 450,000. Okay. Wait lang. Kulang tayo ng ano dito. Amortization. So, 9%. Interest expense, effective rate, 10% pa. Tama, 10%. Amortization. So, magkano ba yung magiging interest expense natin for the year? Ito na yung magiging sagot. 4695 multiplied by 10%. The answer is 469,500. So, 469,500. Less natin ito, yung 450. Less natin yung effective rate. So, less 450. The amortization for the year 2018 is 19,500. So, kapag ganyan, i-add natin siya sa present value. So, plus 4695. The answer is 4,714,500, which is the answer for letter C. So, for number 2, the answer is letter C. 4,714,500. So, alam ko naman na may idea na kayo sa entry nito, right? Mas may idea na kayo sa entry nito. Ang naging entry natin ito, diba, debit tayo ng cash, 4,695,000. Tapos, debit tayo ng discount advance payable. Magkano? Yung difference niyan, 5 million minus 4,695, 305,000. Ganon. Tapos, credit tayo of course ng advance payable na 5 million. So, nung nagka-interest expense tayo, nagbayad tayo ng December 31, debit tayo ng interest expense for 450,000, credit tayo ng cash for 50,000. Amortization, ang amortization natin, debit tayo ng interest expense 19,500, credit tayo ng discount on bonds payable na 19,500. So, ganun po yun. Okay? So, pag may mga ganito po kayong problem, tinatanong yung interest expense, of course, sabi nga po kanina sa theoretical, yung basis po ng interest expense natin is yung effective rate, yung actually incurred natin. Diretso nyo na sa present value nito multiplied sa 10%. Diretso nyo na. Kahit hindi nyo na gamitin ito, tapos ipa-plus to, matrabaho lang. So, kapag mga problem exam, diretso nyo na. Okay? So, okay na po tayo dyan. So, ito, simple lang yung tanong 2018. How about kapag tinanong yung 2019, 2020? So, and so on and so forth, di ba? Tuloy-tuloy nyo lang for 2019, for 2020. Tuloy-tuloy nyo lang. So, 450 dito, ganon. So, ito naman yung basis natin. I-multiply natin sa 10%. So, 471, 450, minus, tapos yung bago, and so on and so forth. Ganun lang po yung magiging basihan natin. So, kapag may mga ganito po kayo na-encounter na problem, always prepare amortization table kapag malala yung taon na yung tinatanong. Okay po? Kung alam niyo yung technique, so, na sa calculator para mabilis, pwede naman po yun. Pero, to be safe, gamitin niyo na rin po itong amortization table. Okay? So, number 4 po natin, on January 1, 2018, an entity issued 10-year bonds with face amount of 5 million for 5,775,000. Okay. The entity paid bond issue cost of 100,000 on the same day. The stated interest rate on the bond is 10% payable annually every December 31. The bonds have an 8% yield per annum after considering the bond issue cost. The entity used the effective interest method of amortizing bond premium. So, the question for number 1 is what is the interest expense for 2019? So, sa case po na ito, meron po tayong premium and meron din po tayong bond issue cost. So, i-less lang po natin doon. So, may na-compute po tayo na total premium na 675,000. So, the fair value less transaction cost po natin, okay. Gamitin na natin yung amortization table. Date natin. Date. Interest expense, stated rate. Interest expense, effective rate. Okay. Amortization expense. Then, present value. Yung present value po natin is 5,675,000. I hope alam nyo kung bakit naging ganyan. 5,775 minus 100,000 na bond issue cost. So, yan po yung present value noong January 1, 2018. So, ang tanong is 2019. So, yon. Kaya po, nire-require po kayo mag-ganito pag may problem na ganon. Kasi, 2019 na yung tanong. So, Magkano? 5 million multiplied by 10%. Of course, 500,000. Tama? O, magkano yung interest expense? Basis natin sa present value, right? 5675 multiplied by interest expense na 8%, 454. So, 454,000. Magkano yung amortization for the year 2018? Minus 500, 46,000. Ayan naman, i-less natin siya dito sa present value. So, less natin sa 5675, 5629. Okay? Ganyan. So, 2019. 2019, of course, 500,000. Ito 10% to to 8%. Face amount, 5 million. Okay? 5629 multiplied by 8%. Magkano? 450,320. So, the answer for number 1 is letter D, 450,320. To get the amortization expense, less natin sa 500,000. 49.68. Okay. Yun yung i-less natin sa 5629. So, the answer for number 2 is 5,579,320. Okay, yan po yung magiging carrying amount ng bonds payable natin on December 31, 2019. Paano naman kapag tinanong yung 2020 and so on and so forth? Tuloy-tuloy nyo lang po ito. So, that's why gumawa po kayo ng amortization table. Okay? So, for our last problem po, ito, tinapik naman po dito is about fair value through profit or loss. So, on January 1, 2017, Tricia Company received 1,772,200 pesos for 12% bonds with face amount of 1 million. Tricia Company received 1,077,200 for 12% bonds payable with face amount of 1 million. The bonds were sold to yield 10%. Interest is payable semi-annually every January 1 and July 1. The entity elected a fair value option for measuring financial liabilities. On December 31, 2017, the fair value of the bonds is 164,600. The change in the fair value of the bonds attributed to market factors. So, number 1, what is the carrying amount of the bonds payable on January 1, 2017? So, sabi ko nga po kanina, kapag fair value through profit or loss, yung fair value na po, yung na-receive na total na na-receive natin. Excluding the interest expense, bond issue cost is disregarded. So, the answer for number 1 is letter B, 1,077,200. Number 2, what is the interest expense for 2017? Ayun po, kapag fair value through profit or loss, disregard the effective interest rate, disregard the yield rate. So, ang papansinin lang po natin is yung face amount at saka yung stated rate. So, the answer for number 2 is 1 million multiplied by 12%. The answer is letter A, 120,000. Okay po. Number 3, what is the gain or loss from change in fair value of the bonds payable for 2017? Ang initial measurement po natin kanina is 1,077,200. Ano nangyari? Tumaas po ba o bumaba? Bumaba. So, pag bumaba yung utang, gain or loss? Of course, gain. So, magkano po yung difference niyan? Gain po yan. So, 1,077,200 minus 1,064,600. Meron tayong gain na 12,600. So, the answer is letter C for that problem. Number 4, what is the carrying amount of the bonds payable on December 31, 2017? Of course, ito na po yun mismo. The answer is letter A, 1064600. So, salamat po sa pakikinig. Tapos na po tayo sa bonds payable. So, I hope may natutunan po kayo. Maraming salamat and God bless you. Aspiring CPA, future CPA, claim na po yan. Okay, God bless.